We will go ahead and call the meeting to order. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pape,
Here.
Councilmember Shavetta,
Here.
Councilmember Hands,
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell,
Here.
Councilmember Leahy,
Here.
Councilmember Neal,
Here.
Councilmember Ryder,
Here.
Councilmember Silvers,
Here.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, the first item up is public items. Members of the public are encouraged to use this time to make comments about matters that do not appear on the agenda. Comments about matters about items on the regular agenda will be taken up as each item is considered. Please note that individuals making a public comment are limited to 5 minutes. I do have 2 people that are signed up. One of them indicates that they want to talk about street work, and the other one indicates STRs, which will be on the agenda later this evening. But calling the first one forward is Raymond Delgado. If you could come forward, sir, and to the podium there and give your name and address for the record. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, I appreciate it, sir. Raymond Delgado, 8138 West 56 Terrace, Merriam, Kansas. I want to talk about the street. I got a couple pictures that I'll pass out that you guys can look at. And I'll give this one to you, sir.
Thank you.
The first one addresses, it's during the winter time. It's where the calming curves are between Johnson Drive and 55th Street all the way down Goodman. Those are the only calming curves I know of that are in our neighborhood or in Merriam that I've found. And during the winter time, as you can see from the pictures, it causes a problem. When they shovel it or plow it, it doesn't clear both lanes. So the calming curves there, people are hitting the curves and causing damage to that. It's a safety hazard, if you ask me, based on the fact when you see the pictures, you'll see what I see. I see it on a daily basis, driving, going to school. I'm retired, so I go to college. I'm just trying to get my degree like everybody else. But as you can see on the 4th, 5th, and 6th pictures, those are in clear day. The problem with it, the lines are there, but people are not paying attention to those lines. And they're coming straight up over the top. I have a 4x4 pickup truck, and I can't see coming one way or the other. So if somebody's speeding coming up over that hill, we're risking somebody getting into a head-on collision. It's going to be a problem. And it's already a problem because people don't pay attention to those lines. Ms. Shavetta lives in my neighborhood. I'm sure she sees the same thing that I see. I don't know if anybody else has complained about it, but I think that something needs to be done with that street and it needs to be straightened out somehow. It's less maintenance that way, and people have already run over the sides of those calming curves. And I've had one person run it over that I seen, and I pulled over and I asked them if they were okay, and it bottomed out their car. I don't know if they were paying attention or what. I can't answer that question. I just know what I see on a daily basis, what's happening. Even if you posted a police officer up at the top of any one of those calming curves, you're going to get the same result. Those people are going to keep speeding through there and going up over those hills and not pay attention to those lines. I don't want to risk a head-on collision. I don't want my wife to get in one, and I don't want any of the young people in the neighborhood that go up to the school that are driving to get into a head-on collision either. So that's my concern for the city and how we are going to address it and what we can do to fix it to keep this from happening.
Yeah, how long, sir, have you lived up there?
I've lived there since 2005. My wife's lived there since 1966.
So you're familiar with, it was probably straight then when you moved into the neighborhood?
No, it was not straight when I moved in, but it was straight when my wife lived there. Her parents had their house built there.
Yeah, and they had problems with speeding on that street, so
And
that's
it
why
has
those
not changed.
curves got put in there to try to slow that down. So
I
I'm not-
understand that, sir, but it has not changed at all. I can sit up at the top of that hill with the video camera and I can record what's happening. If I need to do that, I'd be willing to do that. but I don't want it to go that far because of what could happen in the time of me doing that and addressing it again with the council meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we can look into that. We can have staff, have maybe the police chief do some monitoring of the speeds up there and see if they're in our director from our Public Works, Ms. Kumke, and see if there's any solutions that they can come up with. I do know it got changed to try to slow that down.
But why is that the only street that I know of in Merriam that has those calming curves in it? That can't be the only place that has hills like that. A couple blocks over, there's one that has a hill on it. It doesn't have any calming curves on it. I can't see what's coming over the top of that, even though those lines are there. I can't see it. If I can't see it, they can't see me.
Right.
And that's my issue. That is my biggest concern with that. I don't want a head-on collision. I don't want to hear sirens in my neighborhood for people that got into an accident doing that. That's not what we're here for. We're here for public safety to try to help, to make it easier. Straightening that street out is going to be easier. And not to mention with people putting their trash cans out there, they're out there on the edge of that. People, I stay in the lines, and people that come through there, they're going to hit those trash cans. I'm not worried about the trash cans, so I'm worried about people.
Well, we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. We'll have our staff look into it and see if they can come up with any solutions. I'm at a loss because we've been in one direction and then we've gone this way, and we'll try to determine whether it's working or not working. Or get with the council members in your ward and confer with them and see if they have any solutions as well too. But
I just wanted to get it taken care of before something serious happens. And like I said, I understand that that the city has money. Why not straighten it out and make it easier? Less maintenance.
all right, your time's up. So
Thank you.
thank you though. Okay. The next person I have on the list here is Mr. Pugh, and we are going to be talking about STRs later. So that's fine. Okay. Is there anyone else that did not sign up on the sheet that would like to come forward during public comments that is not on our agenda this evening? If there's anyone else out there? Don't see anybody. I will say if anybody plans on speaking at the work session later concerning single trash haulers, then you need to speak now because you will not be given the opportunity in work session. You would like to talk about that? Or short-term rentals. That will be coming up later in this meeting, so you'll get a chance to speak at that time for short-term rentals, okay? Don't see anyone else. Okay, well, we will close out the public section of our meeting this evening, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. And all items listed under the heading are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case that item will be removed and considered separately. Considering I only have one item on there, and that is the minutes. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes before I call for a vote? I would entertain a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve consent agenda item number 1.
Thank you, Ms. Anstor. I have a second. Go ahead, Ms. Shonders.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion, a second.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item up is the mayor's report, and the first item on that is the Employee Service Awards. We have two individuals that will be recognized this evening. One of them is Ingrid Berg, and the other is Corey Heron. But I understand there's only one currently with us in the office, in the audience. Okay, I'll call Mr. Engel forward, and I'll come down.
So we've got two individuals this evening, as the mayor said, that are to be recognized for their first quarter anniversary. We hand out anniversary awards and certificates of service for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, sometimes 35 years of service, dedicated service to the city. The first individual that is not here is with our police department, and that is Officer Corey Heron, who's been here for 15 years. If we could just give him some acknowledgement. 15 years of dedicated service to the police department. Our next awardee for 10 years of dedicated service to our Park and Rec department is Ingrid Berg.
Appreciate it. Okay, next item up is proclamations, and I always like proclamations because something important is always happening when we have a proclamation. The first one is National Donate Life Month, and I will just read this proclamation. Whereas more than 400,000 Americans are alive today thanks to the generosity and courage of organ donors, and whereas during National Donate Life Month, we honor donors and their families who have turned pain into purpose by sharing the gift of life with loved ones or those whom they have never met. And whereas more than 100,000 people, including 1,900 children throughout the United States, are currently awaiting life-saving organ transplants, while 17 Americans die every day while waiting for a transplant. And whereas in Kansas, more than 500 people are on a waiting list to receive life-sustaining transplants, and whereas we have the power to change that, as one person can save up to 8 lives through organ donation after they die and improve another 75 lives through eye and tissue donations, and thousands of others can choose to donate an organ while still living. And whereas, while transplantation continues to increase substantially, and meet the needs of many people with organ failure, we must continue our efforts to shorten the waiting list and encourage organ donation. Now, therefore, I, Bob Pape, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of Merriam, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as National Donate Life Month. I encourage every person in our community who can to share the gift of life and hope by becoming an organ, eye, tissue, or bone marrow donor proclaimed on this 8th day of April 2024. So, give a round of applause for anybody that might be donating. You can have that put on your driver's license, so if something should happen, that people know that. The second proclamation that we have this evening is from 7 Days, and I would like to read this, and then I'm going to call someone forward who is actually in the audience. Elena Miller is here and is going to accept this, but let me read it first. Whereas 7 Days Makes a Ripple, Change the World is an annual series of events demonstrating how hatred, bigotry, and ignorance can be overcome by kindness, respect, and understanding. And whereas 7 Days commemorates the lives of Dr. William Corporon and his grandson, Reet Underwood, and Teresa Lamano, who were murdered on April 13, 2014, by encouraging all people to discover commonalities and overcome evil acts with kindness. And whereas 7 Days 2024 is April 10th through April 18th, and focuses on kindness through activities with the daily themes of love, discover, you, others, connect, go, and onward. And whereas Merriam is committed to being a community where kindness is key, understanding is paramount, and has a strong partnership to support this worthy outreach effort by conducting 7 days of kindness activities. Now, therefore, I, Bob Pape, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of Merriam, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 10th through the 18th, 2024, as 7 Days of Kindness Week in the city of Merriam. I encourage all residents, businesses, organizations, and visitors to come together to be more understanding of differences and act more kindly to others, thereby making the world a better place, one ripple at a time. Proclaimed on this 8th day of April, 2024, Bob Pape, Mayor. And there you go. And if you could come forward, Elena, and we'll give you an opportunity just to say a few words.
I appreciate that. Not sure where to stand.
Oh, yes, stand at the podium and speak into the mic.
Okay.
If you could just.
Sorry.
You're
Well,
interested.
Mayor Pape, I want to thank you so much, and of course, the council members for supporting 7 Days. We're in our 10th year of advocating for kindness. We seek to overcome hate through kindness and understanding with education and dialogue, and really Merriam represents that on our behalf. So we thank you so much. You're one of 15 kindness cities. We also have Johnson County as a kindness county, and Mid-America Regional Council as a kindness partner for the region. And we want to invite everybody in the community to join us on April 14th for our first Kindness Festival. It will commemorate our 10 years of spreading and promoting kindness, and we hope everybody will join us at the Jewish Community Center at 4:30 for our Kindness Festival. There'll be many activities, food trucks, lots of entertainment, and an opportunity to be together. So we thank you so much for your support of our efforts, and we hope that everybody will continue to be kind.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for the organization. I will come down and we'll give you this proclamation
I would
in
love that.
person,
Thank you.
and we'll take a few pictures.
Thanks. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting my exercise today. Okay. Let's see, other things that we have. I always like to take a few moments just to talk about some of the things I and other council members have done. If I obviously miss anything, I'll reach out to the council, make sure we get that listed here. I met with Mr. Engel, conducted his annual evaluation. A list of 5 goals were given to him to accomplish in 2024, and I'm confident that he will meet that challenge. I attended the Johnson County Kiwanis meeting. I was responsible for the speaker this month, and I was fortunate to enlist the help of Johnson County District 1 Commissioner Becky Fast, who came and spoke to us about the things that are going on at the county. As a reminder, I think we have a county State of the County address meeting coming up this week. If you signed up for council people, please show up and be there. I attended the Johnson and Wyandotte County Mayor's meeting that was hosted by Mayor Rick Walker of DeSoto. Okay, we were lucky to see the new Panasonic facility, if anybody has not been out there to see that yet. But it's my understanding that that building is so large that you can take the largest building in the world and actually put it inside that building, at least lengthwise, inside that building. That's how big that building is. If you haven't been out there to see it, it's huge. A couple things we found out about that is that they can make 66 batteries in 1 second. Okay. Thought that was pretty impressive. It takes 4,000 batteries, though, for a car, but they're making a lot of batteries out there. And I also was interested and found out that those they recycle those batteries when they do go bad, and they turn them into new batteries. So it's not going to a landfill. So that was good to hear as well, too. Other stuff that was conducted at that meeting, we changed our bylaws to change the meeting date and just some various other things. But it's always good to get together with your other mayors. I and Councilmember Hands attended the Tim Murphy Art Gallery opening. I encourage anyone that hasn't been down there to see the new art that's being displayed down there to get down there within the next few weeks before it changes again. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to interrupt you because Ingrid, that we just clapped for, is the curator of that. And the current one is really an interactive sound and pictures. It's very, very cool.
Thank you for sharing that. Yep, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. Okay, other things. I and Councilmember Hands met with Mr. Engel to make tonight's agenda. And then I met with Mike Brower, who is the Johnson County Criminal Justice Coordinator. He heads up the council or the county advisory committee, and I was appointed to that, or I technically have not been appointed to that. Let me rephrase that. I assume I'm going to be appointed to it. I'm going to be the representative for the Johnson County mayors on that committee itself for the county. I think I'll get appointed. We'll see, but I assume I will be. But anyway, my meeting was to find out what that committee actually does from a county's perspective itself, and there are numerous other committees that will report to that advisory committee. And that's some of the things that I did. So did I miss anything from any of our other council members that I forgot to check with you earlier? Sorry. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, let's moving right along here. I think we're ready for council items. Approve 24 budget adjustment to sponsor a Pride of Hearts event. There we go. We have Ms. Guards here.
Good evening. I believe everyone is familiar with the Parade of Hearts, but if you're not, it is a metro-wide public art experience. This is the final season of the Parade of Hearts, and the city of Merriam has the opportunity to sponsor that for this final year. One of the goals of the city council is public art, but we also recognize that this is a tourism opportunity. It is shown in the last few years of the Parade of Hearts experience. People like to go visit the hearts, and so if we do have the opportunity to get a heart in Merriam, we hope that we can utilize that as a tourism experience. That's why we're asking the council to transfer into the transient guest tax fund for this opportunity. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Gordon? Wow, I guess you explained yourself well. Well, if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion for Ms. Gard's request. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Shadrich.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve a budget adjustment in fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $10,000 to sponsor the 2024 Parade of Hearts event.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, go ahead. Ms. Haynes?
Yes, I'd like to second that.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For those of you that haven't seen the Parade of Hearts, it's really interesting, and I think we're going to hopefully get a good one. So, looks like the next item up here is consider approval of an agreement with KDOT, and we have Director Kumke with us. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, our annual capital improvement program includes funds to convert our street lights to LEDs, and LEDs reduce the energy consumption by approximately 65%, and they provide good light on the road. We currently have over 1,800 street lights within the city, and 231 have been converted to LEDs to date. So in 2023, staff applied for Carbon Reduction Program grant funds to convert our streetlights to LEDs, and we were recently notified that we were awarded $522,870 in federal funds. That requires a 20% match, which is about $130,000. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to purchase over 800 decorative and residential LED fixtures. So that'll go a long ways towards reaching our goal of converting all our streetlights to LEDs. So the agreement list allows us to accept the funds and lists our requirements in order to, follow federal aid procurement procedures. We'll use our in-house crews to install the LED fixtures. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, Director Kumke? Well, I see no questions, and it looks like a very good program, and for whoever secured that grant, send them our thanks for, that's money that we don't have to spend locally out of our taxpayers, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
I would entertain a motion for this request. Go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve an agreement between the Kansas Department of Transportation, KDOT, and the city of Merriam to accept carbon reduction program funds for the citywide street light upgrade program.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second? Go ahead, Mr.
I'll
Caldwell.
second that.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal. Councilmember Neal. Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Looks like next item up on the list is the short-term rental discussion. Looks like we have Director Dyer coming forward.
Mayor, council members, Brian Dyer, Community Development Director, and as I cue this up here, this evening, continuing your discussion in regards to short-term rentals. This is a conversation that started towards the end of last year. And you've had a couple of items and a couple of opportunities to discuss this issue. Just a little bit of background. The reason council got interested in this issue because council was hearing from neighbors and neighborhoods and concerns to STRs, short-term rentals located within their neighborhood. Staff did do some background, did do some checking in regards to that, for generally speaking, from a police and from a code enforcement standpoint. STRs aren't, we don't see an increase in calls for service nor increase in the number of code violations from STRs in comparison to a normal single-family home. However, as we present information to you, and we'll do it again here this evening, we are seeing some clustering of these STRs in some neighborhoods. So your last conversation on this was a study session a couple weeks ago, and at that study session, we got a number of ideas from council in regards to potential STR regulations that could be added in addition to the ones we already have this evening. So staff took all that information, put together into the slides, kind of walk you through it, go through some of the different options that you all may wish to see in an ordinance. Hopefully, by the time we're done with this conversation this evening, staff has good direction as to, A, if council wants to see an STR ordinance for additional regulations on short-term rentals, and B, what is in that ordinance. Now, first of all, I just want to be clear, I'm not expecting council to pass any ordinance this evening, assuming that we get some direction and council does want an ordinance. The soonest it could be on one of your agendas will be your next meeting, or the last meeting of this month, for first reading, and then potentially a second reading the first meeting of May. And I just want to remind everybody that we do not have a second meeting in May. We only have one meeting in May. A little bit as to also why we were bringing it up at this point in time is because, as we all know, the World Cup is coming to Kansas City in 2026. One of the reasons that the whole metro area is having conversations about STRs is how that could interact, interplay with the STR business. We did find out, and as we have communicated to you, that STR businesses such as Airbnb, VRBO, open up the window for folks to make reservations 2 years in advance of when you're going to be at the stay. So again, we're doing it now because it is 2 years in advance of the World Cup, because we want to make sure that whatever rules the city wishes to put in place, that we don't pull the rug out from underneath somebody who's coming from overseas to have a stay in Merriam. So with that, that's kind of a real quick summary and a real quick background as to how we got here this evening. So again, what are we talking about? Talking about short-term rentals. We'll read you the definitions. This is what we've done a number of times, but just make sure we're all on the same page. This is also would be something that would be in a potential ordinance. Is the short-term rental is the leasing of single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, or attached dwellings for not more than 28 consecutive days in which the property owner does not occupy the dwelling for the duration of a lease. So essentially, it's a whole home short-term rental in where the property owner is not present during the rental time. So kind of the things that we've heard from council is potential new STR, short-term regulations, is an STR license. So that would be something that was in addition to a landlord license. I will cover that here in just a second. STR buffer zone, again, that was conversation in regards to creating buffer zones around existing STRs. So a new STR couldn't locate within that area, again, with the idea of trying to disperse them throughout the community, not having them concentrated in one neighborhood. Neighborly requirements, again, we've had a lot of conversations about information that we could provide to an STR owner or manager for them to provide to their guests to make sure they understand what their expectations, what the city's expectations are of them during this day. And then again, kind of the effective date of STRs, that's again back to the STR buffer. If we're going to set if we're going to create existing STRs, we have to have a date for when we would set those existing STRs. So I think this is a good time to go over what we currently do with STRs right now. So somebody with an STR, they're required to get a landlord license. With that landlord occupational license to the city does biannual inspection. So every 2 years we do an interior inspection. Those interior inspections, that's more than what our neighboring communities do. So we do an in-home interior inspection. What that interior inspection is life safety, maintenance, and things like that. And then we also do routine exterior inspections. Those are kind of, probably the three big items that we do with existing STRs. So again, that's quite a bit, and that's, again, probably a little bit more, particularly with the in-home inspections than our neighboring communities do with it. So the first kind of question that perhaps staff has for council is there a desire to have an additional standard, an additional STR license. So this STR license would be in addition to the landlord occupational license. So somebody who has a short-term rental would have a landlord license, and on top of that would be a STR license. So each year, if they kept the STR operational, they'd have to get 2 renewals, landlord and STR. License fee be $300, and the reason we are looking at $300, again, I will go through that a little bit later, is one, quite a bit more administration on our end for them. We're expecting to provide them with some information for them to post, and generally speaking, we anticipate more interaction with STR operators. And then it'd be renewed annually. So with that, I will look to see, is that something, because if council wishes to not have an STR permit, this presentation on my end will be done right now. So that's
Do you want
really
to handle
first
those one at a
inflection.
time? Whether, are we interested in an SDR license?
Yeah, because we have a few items to go here. So again, and really, this is the right point, because if there's no interest in doing an SDR license, we can end this discussion at this point.
We have just a nod of heads whether you want us to continue with an SDR going forward with a license. Yeah. I see.
I see a consensus as well.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
So, obviously, with an STR license, that means we can require a number of things within that licensing things that we do for other things. This is an analogous to other areas in which we do this. Again, landlord licensing, when you get a license, there's a number of things you got to do. Another example, and I will go into what these neighborly requirements are, but another great example is type 1 home occupations. Those are home occupations in which someone has to get a permit. There's a number of standards within that they have to require. So looking at those two situations, some of the neighborly requirements that could be made of an STR owner, and again, these are things we heard from the study session, is an STR owner, in order to get the license, would be required to provide notification to all the property owners within 100 feet of the STR, and any HOA in which that STR is located. The notification at a minimum include the STR license, the STR property owner manager's address, and the STR property owner manager's phone number. Again, this is somewhat analogous to what we do with type 1 home occupation. So is that something that council would like to see in their ordinance?
So the notification is just, we're here, it's not permissions, it's not opening doors for for the neighbors to come and protest that they're licensed or anything like that?
This is very analogous to what we do with home occupation.
Okay.
Home occupations, folks, aren't, there is no veto power by.
No
the surrounding-
recourse.
It's
Okay.
simply information provided, and one of the main reasons, kind of what I alluded to earlier, again, we don't see code violations, aren't something that we see a lot of. However, neighbors do have concerns about other things, and if they have concerns about those other things, they would know exactly who to contact to discuss those concerns with.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna suggest, could we make the radius a little bit wider and/or to match whatever buffer council might decide to implement?
You certainly could, and if you go for 1,000 foot, that's gonna be a big lift for somebody. That's a lot. That also means that there'll be a lot more folks who have the opportunity. Again, a lot of people are gonna know a lot, and I think it's perhaps an opportunity for folks to maybe not understand what all is going on, but we certainly could match that up with that. I would say, again, 1,000 feet would be a lot of postage.
I just think if we're gonna take that away from everybody else, if the council decides to go forward with the buffer, we're taking that away from those other homeowners, they should have the right to know going in. At least
Sure.
That's my opinion.
And again, it's what council would like to do. As an example, again, just to kind of go back to an analogy of what we currently do in another area, home occupations, it's a 200-foot buffer. That 200-foot buffer really comes from rezoning applications, public hearing applications. It's a 200-foot buffer notification on those public hearing applications. So that's where that 200 came from. So again, so maybe we ought to kind of parse this down a little bit. Is there a desire to have notification be done? Looks like yes.
I'm pretty neutral on that.
Okay. So.
Looked like the majority did.
So with that, I mean, is there does the council have a particular direction they would like to go in regards to the area to cover?
How wide are most of our city block or city lots? How homeowners' lots? Is this one neighbor, two neighbors? What's 100 feet? Two neighbors?
No, 100 feet's going to be anywhere, typically 5 to 10.
On both, odds on both sides? 2 houses. It's like two to three houses,
Yeah,
one
two
direction,
houses
to three
each
houses.
direction.
Yeah. That's
So
what Bruce is
100
asking.
foot, though, you're going across the street and all the way around. You 5 to 10 is, you can
In
easily
total,
get 5 to
in
10.
total, okay.
yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Total, yes.
You said 200 feet for standard rental licenses, but then 100 feet?
Oh, 200 feet is for home occupational license, permit.
Got it.
200 feet is also the notification for rezonings.
Okay, thank you. I think we could match that then if that's my thought.
So are you looking for a distance from us? If I think people want to be notified. Is it 200 seem to be a consensus or something more? Is that, I don't know if we can get there or not, but
I don't know, I mean, I was pretty clear that I think it should match the buffer.
the buffer.
I think that's way too broad.
Yeah.
1,000 feet could possibly be 2 blocks, right? Because it could be the houses on the other side of the street,
Oh,
and then
It'll probably be a couple.
backyard neighbors,
Yep,
and then the
and
neighbors
backyards,
across
yep.
from them.
Correct, exactly right.
That's way too big. And we don't require any of the home rental folks don't have to do this.
So landlord licensing does not require any
Okay.
notification of neighbors, no.
I think 100 foot is fine. It gives, that's neighborly.
I guess I'm just, in my own mind, trying to figure out why we don't do at least 200, if that's for the occupational license anyway, because you're going to have an occupational license and a
So-
SDR license, right?
The-
So why would
again,
it not match? I
The
guess?
200 foot, again, would be for a home occ, which this is not. It's just an example of what our usual notification is 200 foot. Again, if there's a desire to stay consistent with with our other notification requirements, 200 feet would be would be consistent with our other notification.
But they can't get
requirements.
an SDR without getting an additional occupational license too. Is that correct or
Landlord
not?
license,
Landlord.
not a home
Oh, just-
occupation.
okay,
Home
just a la-
occupation license is
is
a type
separate than
one.
the-
Correct, that's
Yeah,
just an
okay.
example.
Thanks for the correction.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
thanks, sir. Okay. Well, I'm curious what others think.
I kind of think if you're looking at us and we're looking back at you, like, the answer is I don't think we have a huge preference. So-
For simplicity, 200 feet might be the right answer.
I don't know what the logic is for 200 feet, but it would seem like it'd be similar.
Well, what's the logic for 200 feet for some, the other one, like,
Agreed, agreed. So let's just have to defend one distance.
exactly.
Okay.
Like,
Well, we can start with 200 feet, and again, you all have an opportunity to discuss this at your next meeting. So within the next part of the neighborly requirements, it's STR rules of conduct. So these would be things that, the expectation would be that the STR operator would provide to their guests. These are items that, or information that the city would provide to an STR owner upon issuing them an STR license and then at their STR license renewal. So they would get a packet. Obviously, doing it for renewal keeps it up to date, keeps it fresh. The things that would be put in there would be a welcome to Merriam, things that, again, tell folks we're glad to have them here, and things that were our expectation of them. Identify that they're in a residential neighborhood and they should act accordingly. Provide them with a description of the codes and ordinances that they should be aware of, that they may be mindful of, such as we do have excessive noise limits. We also, one of the things as code enforcement, probably our main complaint that we would get on, we do get on SDRs is folks not putting the trash back and screening it properly, so we'd remind them of that as well. And then the last item we would, kind of broad item would be provide them with Visitors Bureau of information in regards to Merriam businesses, in regards to things to do, the travel and tourism part of it as well. So That would be a requirement that the STR owner would provide to the guest, either in the book that they provide them information or posted throughout in some location within the unit. Is that something the council would like to see us put in the ordinance? Okay.
A yes on that? Ms. Ryder, was that you?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
This might be a question more suited to the city attorney, but I was wondering, since before we get too far off the buffer zone topic, I was wondering how people would be notified of this if a buffer zone is enacted.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are not done with the buffer zone topic. We are
Oh, we're not
coming to
done.
it.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we will be
Okay.
in a second. Sorry.
Shall I continue with my question or wait?
Why don't you hold up? It may get answered by Mr. Dyer, Director Dyer.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, why don't you hold off on your question? Let's see if Director Dyer covers that in his presentation. And if he doesn't,
Okay.
then we'll call you forward then.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. So,
Me,
yeah, I'm sorry.
Back on the rules of conduct, posting and all that, what enforcement mechanism would there be?
We do interior inspections, so we will get an opportunity to go into the house to make sure that they're posted.
Every 2 years.
Yep, that's correct. And so, again, that really is a good faith forum for everybody. When we're in there, we will make sure that they're posted, yes.
If I could add, we certainly also could require as part of this that all of the verbiage that we would require that they post be posted in the rental, on the rental site. That, from the city of Merriam, if you're familiar with a Varbo or an Airbnb site, there's a lot of additional verbiage that they include in that. We certainly could include that in there also, so that we know that it is good faith that it's up and posted inside. We know that it's in the rental because we can police that. We certainly randomly could go in and check those, and if it's not in there, they're in violation.
Mr. Silvers, go ahead.
You brought up the subject of the trash cans, and so I already had that question in my mind. If someone rents the short-term rental and puts the trash out on Sunday and then leaves, and then the house is vacant, the owner may be out of town, I don't want to call it an absentee owner, but an out-of-town owner. How does the city address that? If we're going to talk about trash cans being an issue, which they are, how do we address when trash cans are left out and there's no one to take them in?
We address it as we do now. We contact the STR owner and explain to them the rules on trash cans and make sure they comply with the rules on trash cans, that they can't be left out the curb for an extended period of time.
And it's a code violation, so is there a
Yes, it is.
fine that goes along with that?
If they continue to do it, there is. Majority of the time, once they are aware, they correct the situation. Our experience is typically is the cleaning crew that does it, that comes out and they'll do a clean and they'll go out and set out the curb. So our experience is we provide information and educate the STR owner as to what the rules are.
Okay. And just for clarity, the code violation is an appearance in court or not?
So it's a notice to appear, it's a ticket. So typically, if it's a code violation with our codes, you first get a notice of a letter from us explaining to you what the violation is and giving you the time to correct it. If you don't correct it within a lot of time, then you are potentially going to get the notice to appear, and that's just like getting a speeding ticket. You show up in court.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, talked quite a bit about STR buffers. Obviously, one option is have none. I'm going to show you maps here in just a second. The other option that has been discussed is 1,000 foot. A 1,000-foot buffer would encumber 1,700 residential parcels. Again, what is that buffer? That buffer is the idea that an existing STR, take a 1,000-foot buffer around it. No other STR and no other future STR could be located within that buffer area. Now, again, as we look at the maps, we all need to keep in mind that those blue dots that I'm going to show you, they can come and go. So an STR drops their license, that blue dot goes away, and so does that buffer area. So again, that was the first analysis that staff did. The other analysis, based upon, again, comments from the study session, was to do a 500-foot buffer. So that obviously reduces the number of parcels from 1,700 to about 730. And again, the idea of the buffer zone is to reduce the concentration of STRs within a specific neighborhood. So when I talked to you, when we did the study session, I had 18 blue dots. Since that study session, as of when I looked this morning, we had 20 blue dots, so we've had 2 additional STRs. And again, these are folks that have reported to us that they are STRs. Again, we do look at Airbnb and VRBO websites. We try our best to identify those STRs and their locations. This is what the map looks like now. Again, I did it at the end of March, but it's still, based on what I looked at this morning, still the effective map. So the 500-foot buffer, here's what it would look like. The areas within yellow, that's the buffer areas, so those are 500 foot around the blue dots. And then the areas in red, those are the parcels that if this was enacted tomorrow, those areas within red, they could not get an STR license unless that buffer zone that they want to be in is gone, unless the STR that they're being the buffer zone is created, loses its license or drops its license. So obviously, that is a much smaller area than this one. This is the 1,000-foot buffer. So again, areas in red are the 1,000-foot buffer around the blue dots, and then the areas in yellow behind it, it's a little bit tough to see. Those are the parcels that would be unable to get an STR license, and again, unless that buffer zone was moved or changed. So in regards to Councilmember Ryder's question about buffer zones, if a buffer zone was enacted, obviously the way that we would determine, the way that it would be administered is if someone came in with an STR license request, we have the mapping capability, as you can see right here, to identify if that STR is located within a buffer zone, and they would not be able to, if their property that they want to do an STR in, we would not issue them a license. So we would work as hard as we can. When I say we, that would be me, because I am the GIS person, to put this information on the website as best we possibly can. And then it'll allow folks the opportunity online to look at their address to see if they are within a buffer zone, to see if they would be able to get an STR license. But yes, we obviously have the mapping capabilities, and we can, when folks, and what we do for other aspects of things, come in and check. It'd be just like, a great example is just a zoning. Someone calls us up, I live at 12345 Goodman Street, what's the zoning? We look it up and say, well, you're R1, that's your zoning. This is very much to be the same situation. I live at 12345 Goodman Street, I want to do an STR, am I within the buffer area? So we would be able to look it up and say, yes, you are, or no, you aren't. Again, a lot of communication, and that's kind of the next topic I have to cover in regards to timing. So we understand there's a lot of communication that has, if an STR ordinance is put in place, a lot of communication that needs to occur, and get that information out there for folks to understand what the STR ordinance means. But yes, we do have the capabilities and would be able to check folks' applications for license. So with that, happy to answer any questions about the buffer zone. But yes, staff would be looking at direction into regards to what buffer zone, what size you would be wanting to implement in an ordinance, none 500 or 1,000 feet.
Ms. Ryder, did Director Dyer answer your question, or do you still have one for him?
Actually, no, not yet. So my question was in regards mostly to properties being, if the buffer zone is that something that like realtors and stuff have to know about, or I guess it would be better if a realtor was there to ask, but is that something that a realtor would have to know about beforehand so that they would be able to tell the potential buyer
So in our.
before purchasing?
Right. Again, this issue is very analogous to zoning. Very similar to the situation. Realtors can get the zoning, they call us up, or we also have the our zoning map online, and they can determine what the zoning of a property is. And so we will have that information out there. It really is generally up to the property owner and the realtor to gather that information if they're wishing to publish the situation of the condition. So, but we always at staff, that's one of the main things, that's one of our just day-to-day functions is folks call us up, say, I live at this address, what can you tell us about it?
Gotcha. My only concern would be if let's say a large corporation tries to buy up a bunch of property and their realtor doesn't do a good job conveying this information beforehand, and they try to sue the city later for us blocking their potential business or something along those lines. But that's good to know that it's up to the realtor more so. So thank you.
I can address that. So, just like Brian said, I mean, the property owners, realtors, everybody is on notice by us adopting whatever code provisions that we have. The public is charged with notice of restrictions that we have on property use, just like we would with if someone wanted to, Brian mentioned home occupations. There's not an unrestricted right to have home occupation in the city, but anyone who's looking at buying property within the city is put on notice by our code provisions relative to home occupations. The same would be true here with short-term rentals. There would be no viable cause of action if someone tried to sue us for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is our three options are none, 500, or 1,000. So.
Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay. I would, I guess, get try to get a consensus here for Director Dyer in reference to. Well, I think we can. I think we can go ahead and move forward, and then we'll call for public comments. We're not adopting anything this evening.
Right.
So once we get public comments and somebody has a major disagreement, I think we could address that at a later date.
Okay.
Okay. No buffer at all. Is there anybody interested in no buffer?
No.
Okay, we have one person interested in no buffer. Okay. How about 500? What's the, okay, we got two that way, three, no. Is that yes or no? I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell. Immaterial,
I think it needs to be 1,000 feet.
Amy, are you 500 or 1,000? And do we still have?
I would be fine with either.
Okay, fine with either. Councilmember Neal, are you online still? I think we may have lost Mr. Neal. Okay, so I'm not sure where we're at. We had a couple 500s. Let's go 1,000. Who really wants 1,000? I know.
What if we listen to the public before we decide to make any firm choices on some of these things?
Yeah, we can do that if we haven't. That's fine. We'll see if there's any direction we can get from the.
That sounds fine. And then also, as mentioned a number of times, this is simply to try to draft an ordinance. You aren't approving anything.
Nothing is
this
approved.
evening. So if there's a desire to change anything that's discussed this evening, when you see it in ordinance form, certainly at that point in time of the first reading, that'd be an opportunity to say, instead of 1,000, we want 500 or no, or whatever the decision is. So certainly can.
And we might hear from more of our constituents after this meeting that aren't here this evening, that finds out and listens to our meeting, and maybe we'll change our minds.
So the last item that I have in regards to what could potentially be within an STR ordinance, the effective date of establishing the existing STRs. As you see, there's already a number, you have 20 STRs, 20 STRs already. So there will be a need to set a date as to locking in what is considered an existing STR going forward. We had discussed July 1st. Staff doesn't feel that that is an achievable deadline at this point in time, and that's for a number of reasons. One, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of information to get out there in the public and get and make that get that out there. Two, just from an administration standpoint, a lot of stuff has got to happen on the back end if there is another STR, if there's another license that's put in place. Obviously, we have a vendor that uses for our software. We got to do a lot of work with those folks to get any kind of new license put in place. So really think July 1st probably at this point in time is not attainable. October 1st is another date that perhaps has a lot of merit to it, and for a number of reasons. One, it does give staff opportunity to work with our vendors and get all the administration stuff put in place. As we mentioned, got a lot of documents that we'll need to put together for STR owners and operators. Also need to work with our vendor to set up the licensing. And then probably one of the most important parts of that is the highlights comes out in August. And if a new STR ordinance is put in place, obviously that would probably be a main topic in the highlights. And as we all know, highlights is probably our number one source for residents getting information about the city. So that comes out in August. That gives plenty of time to have a discussion and get the information out to residents and then implement it in October 1st. And then January 1st, that date, January 1st is always one of the cleanest dates to put in ordinances for effective dates because that's when easy date to remember, first of the year. It's put in place. Now, I will say, and I don't think this comes to surprise anybody on the council, that as this conversation continues with STRs, you will continue to see those blue dots, more blue dots show up on your map. As you can see, it already is happening, and we're pretty confident that as these conversations go, more blue dots are going to show up on that map. So as we go along, it will continue to be there. What that number is, I don't have, staff doesn't have any idea. It really don't have an idea, but you can assume that the further the date's out, the more blue dots are going to be on the map.
Mr. LaHaye, go ahead.
For the licensing, were you think it would be a rolling year or renew every January 1?
Renew every January 1. That's what all our other licenses are set up as, renew January 1.
So if we were to go October, it would just be prorated for the other 3 months?
So yes, that's exactly right. So as we do with our other licenses, after July 1st, they go to half rate. So that would be exactly right this. Say the rate's set at $300, then everybody that comes in before October 1st for an STR license, it would be $150.
Any other questions for Dr. Dyer at this point, as far as, do you want us to try to get a head nod on which state we might be interested in?
You can do that now, or you can take comments and tell me, give us direction afterwards.
Why don't we just wait? We're going to
Okay.
get questions in a second. Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Dyer before we release him from the podium? Okay, I see none. Well, we will go ahead and I believe we have Bill Pugh is first one up. You'd like to be last? Okay. I think, ma'am, did you raise your hand earlier? You want to talk about STRs? Is there anyone else that wants to speak about STRs out there? Okay. If you could come forward and give your name and address for the record. I'll write that down there too.
Hi, my name is Catherine Kinsey. My husband and I have been living at 60th and Antioch for over 30 years, so we've seen a lot of change around here. We strongly support the larger buffer zone, bigger the better, and a communication of city codes. We have an Airbnb next door to us and have had it for almost 2 years. What's it like living next to one? You have new neighbors 3 to 4 times a week. This place has maybe had, on an average, one empty night, if you averaged it out, one empty night a week for a year and a half. That's how busy it is. It can sleep 16 people, so we have had anywhere from 2 to 8 cars parked around there, on the street, in the front, in the back, with the accompanying noise, busyness, slamming of doors, people talking, things like that. It's just, you never get to know these neighbors. There's a fenced yard, so we've seen several dogs. They bark at us because we park in the back. We have a drive out. And we don't get a chance to go, hey, introduce me to your dog, you know. And we don't know if this is the dog that's going to charge and jump the fence at us. We don't know. It's all brand new. So far, we have not had any wild parties, but they just put in a hot tub. And the owner did not get the proper building permits. Well, he didn't get any building permits for the hot tub. There was one weekend full of kids playing around on top of it until they got the locked privacy fence in, which then, of course, isn't always locked. It just makes for an unknown. We've had, they've been pleasant. They're usually here to go do something. I think we've had a couple of guy weekends, however, they were playing cornhole out in the front at 1 o'clock. But they don't have any vested interest in Merriam, in being pleasant, in being neighborly conduct. You need to define that, and also, what would the consequences be if someone breaks these codes? These people are here and gone. There's an owner and there's a management company. This owner happens to live out of state. And we've had to call him once or twice, because when they were doing the remodeling, we exchanged numbers. We had to contact him once or twice, which kept all of his new appliances from being stolen. But he's like, oh, well, could you go over and just shut that door or turn off that light? It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm in my nightgown. I'm not traipsing up and down Antioch. You know, you said you've got people. There's a management company. I'm not sure how all of this works. It's not my Airbnb, but we have to deal with, you know, what is there. And right now, if there was one on the other side of us, we'd be out of here, and you're going to lose your neighborhood. I feel really sorry for that one that has, you know, what is it, almost a half a dozen there within 1,000 feet, because there's no, you lose your neighborhood identity. The buffer I saw defined as restricting parcels that are then restricted. I see it more as protecting your neighborhoods. You're not restricting your neighborhood, you're protecting your neighborhoods. And there's going to be an explosion this summer with construction, because Shawnee's shutting it down. They know Overland Park is talking about stuff, and we are on the I-35 corridor. That's why this thing is you know, leased out so often. It's an easy on and off if you've got something downtown. We had, I think the 8 cars was when the wrestling was here. So anyway, that is, I think, most of my notes, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Okay, I think you're up, sir, if you want to come forward, or, okay, or whichever one of you are. Oh, okay. Please give your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Well, we're from the same residence, but we both have a right to vote, so
Sure.
both our opinions.
You may both speak, but just please give us your name and your address.
Brenda Odell Pugh, 6556 Goodman Drive. I have lived at this residence for 51 plus years, more years than some of you are old. And I just want to preface this by saying, I know this is water under the bridge, because obviously they're all over Merriam. but I wasn't even aware that they were allowed. I don't know when they became legal, but it's disconcerting to say the least because of property values that go down around them. I talked to a realtor, and they can affect your property value. And that doesn't make me very happy after living there for 51 years. I am for the max buffer, which would be 1,000 feet, or there is a row of houses between our home and Antioch Park. And in the summer, when there are different activities or bands or music in the park, we can hear it. I just have to go out and sit on my deck and can hear it. And that's fine because they don't play anything obnoxious. But, you know, if I can hear it from the park, which I think is a good 1,000 feet, I know within 500 feet, if someone wishes to play acid rock, no offense to any 80s people, but I wouldn't be very happy. I mean, it would really drive me crazy. So I don't see what the harm is in making it 1,000 feet instead of 500 feet. I mean, and I'll just end this by saying, whatever are the strictest things you consider in regard to corralling these party houses, I would be for the strictest.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh. Okay. You're up, sir.
Well, my name is Bill Pugh. I live at 6556 Goodman Drive also, along with my wife. And I will start with the buffer areas. I want to give you somewhat of an example of how I can see a problem at no buffer or even 500 feet. I grew up, not in this area, I grew up in Sugar Creek, Missouri, okay? It was a good town back then, but yet Sugar Creek now, I think the percentage of rental property is more than actual living. Now, yeah, that's rental versus the short-term rental, but yet where I'm going with all of that, I just sold 2 duplexes in Sugar Creek. If I would have been just 6 blocks north, I could have gotten 15% more money out of those duplexes. Okay, and so, yeah, it has a big effect. I mean, if you have a shorter buffer area, you're going to get a whole lot more of them in the city. You're better off to have a larger buffer area so you don't have as many, so it isn't as affecting near as many people on their property values. And I know there's cities within Johnson County that are not allowing the STRs, correct?
I'm not sure that that's correct. Do you
I
know,
think
Mr.
I
Engel?
saw somewhere Leewood isn't, and there was a few others that aren't.
We could check into that. I don't know the answer to this, sir.
Yeah, anyway.
We heard about that last week, or 2 weeks ago.
There are a couple that have.
A couple.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Mission-
if there is cities within Johnson County that aren't allowing them, why are we? I mean, that's a good point. You know, why are we allowing it if there's others within Johnson County that don't? There's got to be a reason why they don't. I've got a nephew that lives in Dallas. They will not allow them there because there was enough people that fought over it because it was lowering their property values. So, I mean, allowing it at all is creating a problem. And the noise level, I know I talked to you via email, and you gave me, and I don't remember what it was, a certain level, which is pretty loud, but yet, how far away does that? I mean, I have a decimal reader. I can check it. It's a whole lot different in my yard than going just right across the private drive in front of where, I mean, the one I'm referring to, as you well know, there's 5 bedrooms, a swimming pool, a hot tub. They were putting a fire pit in. I don't know about that. It's going to be a party house. Well, not all the time, but there are going to be, you know. And taking a sound level in my yard isn't going to be near what it would be if I just walk across the street. So I would like to know how close that sound level is, the maximum. And in this, you're saying they need to act neighborly. And you and I, we've had a little bit of a discussion on that in regards to what I have. And I've got, we are not getting neighborly results out of the owner right in back of our house. I'm sure, and the lady that owns it, her father is a contractor, okay? I'm sure he does good work on, I can't swear to it, I don't know. But, you know, I'd like to assume he's doing good work. But he is doing work on my side of the private drive, and everything he has done there is substandard.
I just want to bring to your attention, you only got 10 seconds left, sir.
Okay.
That's all.
I will leave this with you, and then you can just
We'll
pass
pass
it
it
out.
out. Yeah, we'll see that everyone gets one.
There's an easement agreement here also.
Okay.
That pertains, well, right here. Here's 10 copies of my problems.
Okay.
And here's a copy of the easement agreement from 1975 that pertains to a lot of that.
Okay, we'll see that all the council members
Yeah.
get a copy of this. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else out there that would like to talk about STRs? Please come forward now. Okay. Well, Director Dyer, I guess I'd call you back up to the podium and see if you've got the direction you need, or do you need a little more from us?
So, let me get this back up. I think the 2 items that are still, there wasn't consensus on a couple of things, but again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll draft an ordinance for you as council to look at. I think the 2 items we're still looking for a little direction on is the buffer zone. Is there a majority of folks who would like to have an idea of, would they like it 0, 500, or 1,000? Try to get to that point. And then the other item we do need some guidance on as well is the effective date for an established existing STR. So those are the 2 things that staff is still looking for some direction on.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
Based on our conversation in our last work session, when council asked to add 500 feet to the presentation, is why I said 500 feet, because I thought that was the general consensus, but I'm okay with 1,000 feet, along with my other council members.
Okay, so if we're going to try to establish that thing, we've heard from several of our members in our community this evening that are interested in extending that to 1,000 feet. What is the consensus of let's have a head nod for 1,000.
My preference would be 1,000.
Okay. So if you're thinking 1,000, could you shake your head yes for Mr. Dyer?
Yes.
Okay. So we have at least.
Is that enough?
At least 3. And Ms. Ryder, do you want 1,000? You're going to have to speak up because I can't see your head shaking. Ms. Ryder, are you with us still?
Sorry, having trouble unmuting my phone.
Oh, okay.
I would be in favor of a larger buffer zone, particularly because we are typically considered, if affordable, Merriam is considered the most affordable housing in Johnson County. And I would like to keep it that way for the residents instead of taking that away from people and turning them into STRs. So I would prefer the 1,000-foot buffer over the 500-foot.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ryder. Mr. Neal, are you with us? Mr. Neal? I think we've lost Mr. Neal. Okay, I'm not sure if you have the number on that, but how about people that are interested in the 500 buffer? If you would indicate if that's what your preference is 500? Well, looks to me like 1,000.
So we continue to reiterate that that's just a starting point. You all get an ordinance to look at and can have further discussion.
Okay, well, let's move on to the date. The October start date, or as January 1st, the 2025. So if you're interested in the October start date of 2024, shake your head yes.
I'm definitely interested in October. I'm shaking my head and talking.
Okay, we got two. Is that, I'm not seeing yes or no down there.
I'd like to add on that. I said it a lot during the work session that if we're going to take away people's ability to register their homes as short-term rentals, I think making sure they have public notification and having that in the highlights is for the best interest.
And I think we'll get that done even with the October date. It'll be in
we could've-
August if it has.
Right, we're going to have how many highlights that go out before October 1st?
Just one.
One.
probably.
In August.
It'll be August. And again, that's why that's October 1st. That's why staff, why we suggested that date, just to hit highlights.
All right, Mr. Leahy, are you thinking October, or that's okay? Ms. Yadrich, or is that good with you, or? Yeah, either one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It is the will of the council.
Go ahead, Ms. Feta.
Even if we waited till January, would there wouldn't be another highlight?
There wouldn't be another highlight.
So it doesn't really matter.
There would.
It's a spring one.
Will it come out in December? Oh, okay. End of November, beginning of. Got it. Thank you.
But from my point of view, knowing that we've already had one or two added in the last 2 weeks, I think we should move more quickly.
It won't matter in my neighborhood because I'm already the one that has all of them close together. So, yeah, that's I think either one is fine with me, I guess. As long as we have one notice and highlights, I'm fine.
Well, then, I think we'll start with October 1st. Will begin a starting point for your ordinance, and you can, we will work hard to get that on your council agenda for the next meeting.
I'm also just considering, remembering how back to when we made previous choices about these things, and we have been accused of not notifying people enough of choices. And one time in highlights, how else are we going to communicate these things, taking away people's ability to have businesses based on buffers? And that, to me, feels, I know we're also dealing with something that could potentially cause neighborhood issues, but also it could potentially impact passive income for people. And that doesn't sit right with me either. So that's why I'm considering January 1st as more of a clean cutoff date.
Mr. Leahy.
And it's not when we talk about short-term rentals, again, I think we're talking about them from this perspective of oh no, the scary short-term rental devil's coming into Merriam and here to take all your money and your time and your silence, when in reality, what is bad for housing costs is, long-term rentals and property taxes, property prices. So I want to be clear about that if we opt for an earlier date, we are opting for less communication with our citizen.
Mr. LaHaye, go ahead.
I'd agree a lot with that. And just for the record, for a particular business owner, I did count the number of times that downtown Merriam Street was in highlights, and I think it was 5. So, but I do think like having a second actual like notice that we know goes to every property would also be very beneficial.
Okay. So finding out that there may be 2 highlights that are out there, is anybody more interested in the 25th or January 1 of 2025, or you're staying with October? I'm confused. So I think for Ms. Chavetta, it doesn't make a lot of difference. As far as nobody's going to get to come into your place probably anymore anyway. But I'm speaking.
But it's not the whole ward. So, I mean, I want to
Yeah.
think about our whole ward as well.
True. Okay. Do we have what we need, Mr. Engel? You think so? Okay. Okay. Well, bring it forward, and then we'll also have opportunity, obviously, to hear from more people in the meantime, and maybe we'll have before we actually vote on it, and we'll get it out that that's going to be on the agenda, and we'll see what we can come up with. But
All right.
looks like we are moving forward with an SDR.
Yes, we are. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Dyer. Okay, well, let's see what's up next. It looks like she already knows what's up next. Please come forward and talk about our CIP update. Director Kumke.
The CIP update is in your package, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I did want to point out that the 50th Terrace in England project is out to bid right now, and hopefully we'll be bringing back a successful bid to your next council meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Director Kumke? I see no questions, I guess. Oh, well, no, excuse me, Mr. Chavetta does have something.
I just saw that the final plans were anticipated to be submitted on April 5th for the undergrounding. Were those submitted?
No.
Okay.
I just looked at that and I was like, okay, I'll follow up and
Okay.
find out. I mean, I know they're really close. There's a couple items that Evergy's trying to resolve, and so they should be coming anytime.
I was just curious, what that timeline would look like then if the plans had been submitted, but I will wait and ask that the next time.
They're still talking about starting the end of April, but I'll get a more firm date
Okay.
once I
thank
get
you.
the plans.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I think you're released this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's see, we have informational items. We have the Park Recreation Advisory Board minutes. We're in our packets, if no one has any questions for Director Slocum. I see none, okay. Well, Mr. Engel, I think it's up to you for any staff items that you need to convey this evening.
State of the County luncheon tomorrow, 11:30 to 1, OP Convention Center. Happy to carpool if anybody wants to meet up here at about 11 o'clock. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any other questions for Mr. Engel? Okay, I see no other questions for Mr. Engel. We don't have any executive session this evening that I'm aware of. We do have a work session after this. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Hands, okay. And go ahead, Ms. Shadrich.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Okay,